Welcome to our second community support webinar, supported by SuperValu, aiming to help the autism community through COVID-19. When we last talked, we had Michael Ryan and Alison Doyle, really looking at COVID-19 and change from the point of view of people maybe who are of a school age. Since then, we've done our COVID-19 survey, and we've listened to some of the real issues that are arising for the autism community at the present time. And jumping off the page in terms of challenges people were experiencing were lots of autistic adults finding it difficult to self-regulate at home, to manage the sensory environment at home, to put a new structure on a very unstructured world at present. So we really wanted to focus in on that today, and we're delighted that Susan Madigan, our OT friend from DCU, has agreed to join us today and share her expertise with the community. The format for the webinar is going to be that Susan is going to present to us on the topic of structuring an unstructured world. So a very broad topic there, but plenty of scope to touch on, I think, some of the key challenges the community are facing at the moment. And then kindly through our social media, we've received your questions, and Susan is going to try and address those at the end of today as well. We really hope you find the webinar useful. Let us know down below in the comments. Let us know if there's any topics you'd like to see covered over the next few weeks, as we really will be doubling down on the topics that we're covering. So Susan, you're so welcome, and we really appreciate you giving up your time. I know you're very busy supporting students at the moment, so we appreciate it, and we're particularly delighted, of course, with DCU being the world's first autism-friendly university to have someone from DCU flying the flag. So thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to talk a little today. For sure, we are mad busy. We are busier than ever, I think. But I think that's good. Like, that's a good sign that people are using the supports and that, you know, we're getting involved with supporting people in the community. So that's good for us.
Fantastic. Well, without further ado, we'd love to hear your presentation and learn some more.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay. Okie dokie. Oh. Now, hopefully you'll be able to see the screen there.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so I just popped a photo of myself in there because I wasn't sure if you'd be able to see me or not, and I think that just helps to know who to let you know who's talking. So what will we cover today? Introductions. We're going to look at a bit of daily planning and using your time well. Self-regulation and sensory, which loads of people have been asking me about at the moment. Little just touch on organisation at home and minding yourself and self-care. And then we'll do some Q&A like Adam mentioned. Okay, so some of you will know, you may not know, that I have dyspraxia. So normally when I start a presentation, I just do a few breaths because I can already feel myself talking really quickly. So if you want to breathe along with me just for 1 or 2 breaths, you can just breathe in now. So breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in. And breathe out. And again, this is something I'll talk about proprioception a little bit later on, but this is something that's really good to do at home if you are getting a bit anxious, if you feel like you're just feeling a bit dysregulated. That's something really quick and easy to do. And again, I find it helpful to breathe along looking at that, because sometimes people say, well, 2 breaths, 4 breaths, how long are you supposed to breathe in and out for? So that can really help. Okay, so who am I? I'm Susan. As Adam said, I'm an occupational therapist. I work in DCU. And for those of you that don't know, occupational therapists are interested in health promotion. So that's really what we want to look at, preventing people becoming unwell or becoming distressed. So we do this by concentrating on routine. So our productivity, our self-care, our leisure, and meaningful activities that are important to you. Okay. And we help solve problems people have with doing all of these things every day. And we also kind of really specialize in the sensory bit. And I just want to briefly mention at the start here, the information on these slides is quite dense, and I've done that deliberately. I wouldn't normally do that, but I suppose it's in case people don't want to listen to me talking. You know that you'll get most of the information on the slides without having to listen to it as well. So I just wanted to make that clear for people at the start. And of course, you can always watch it back in your own time with the sound off. Okay, so what is routine? Routine is a balanced mix of activities, which for most people means a mix of college or work, study, hobbies, exercise, and social. So just things that you do throughout the day that give you structure and meaning. So what is a balance of that? Well, good question. There's no clear recommended amount of each of those for each person. But everyone has to kind of find out what works for them. And it's important to all of us. And I think that's something that we overlook sometimes. We're so used to routine just being an automatic thing that we don't think about how important it does to us, and especially for those on the spectrum. And it can be really comforting, especially in an unpredictable world, which it very much is at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So experts recommend keeping your daily rituals even while working from home, like this guy who normally commutes on the tube. So he's trying to keep it normal for himself there. Really, we want you to make your routine as similar to your typical one as possible to give that sense of kind of safety. And what a lot of people are telling me now this week and last week is they're trying to do that, even though maybe other people in the household aren't doing that, and that's fine. You kind of stick to your own plan, even if everyone else is routineless. A lot of people are saying it's almost like Christmas. Like, you don't know what day it is. Have you got dressed? Have you got a shower? Like, there's just, the time is very featureless. It's, it's very unstructured. But you need to keep to your routine that's good for you and be confident about that. Like, if you know it's good for you to get up early, maybe go for a walk, or do some meditation, you do that even if everyone else where you're living isn't doing that. And stick to the normal things. If you normally get up at 8, get up at 8. If you normally have a shower first thing, try and do that. So those kind of things that you can control, keep doing them. So how do you build a routine? For most of us, our work or school or college, whatever, gives us routine. And so we don't have that now. Like, lots of us don't have those automatic things. So try to have a time for getting up and going to bed. So that's a really big one, because what a lot of people are telling us is their sleep is affected at the moment, because again, they're getting up later, trying to go to bed, they're not getting to sleep, tossing and turning. So try to have a set time for getting up and going to bed. Get dressed into comfortable clothes. You don't have to be wearing a 3-piece suit, but something that's clean and you feel good. Try to set a goal for each day, and this could be something as simple as, like, call someone, make a meal, go for a walk, or it could be something bigger if you're working on a particular project. But just try to have one focus for the day. If you can't do your usual bits and bobs, can they be adapted? Like, if you always meet a friend for a coffee on a Friday, can you Zoom with them instead? And you literally sit with your own cup of coffee and you Zoom, and they sit with their own cup of coffee, and you'd be surprised how much it does feel like normal social contact. Build variety into the day. So again, this is really important. Little bit of work or study or reading, bit of leisure, so it could be gaming, bit of self-care. So again, it could be getting your shower or even meditating. The real key thing is not to do the same thing all day, because this can really affect dopamine and production and distribution. Okay, so if you're doing the same thing all day, it starts to affect how you think. And especially if it was something like gaming, it's fine to game for a few hours, but if you're gaming all day, that can really affect your mood, because when you try to do something else, it's not as interesting. Okay, so again, it's an easy habit for any of us to fall into at the moment, but try to break it up throughout the day. It's okay to do comforting things that are familiar, like going back and reading a favorite book or watching a favorite film. Please do that if it gives you that kind of sense of comfort and safety. But again, don't do that all day. Don't watch old films 24 hours a day or anything like that. Okay. So productivity, again, some people obviously are working or studying and some aren't. That's fine. This is for the worker bees at the moment. So really try to look at what's a priority. What are the things you really need to do today, tomorrow, that kind of thing. I think everyone can accept that our productivity is going to fluctuate at the moment. We're not in our normal settings. We're not in our normal routines. There's a lot of news. There's even worry, if you've loved ones that are in poor health. So just try to accept that. But also, like I said, try to focus on what are a few things I can get done today. Use a planner, diary, phone calendar, whatever. Maybe you normally don't need to use that because you're quite structured, but now you might need to. So maybe give that a go. Or use a to-do list. If some people say, well, I can't stick to a schedule and it makes me anxious, then use a to-do list. That's fine. If you're working from home, which most people are obviously, try to just box things off. Try to think, let me get this finished. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be my best work, just let me get this done. And be specific. This is really important. So don't just say, oh, well, I'm going to work on X. Kind of go, okay, I'm going to sit down at 2 o'clock and I'm going to read the brief, and then I'm going to start to answer my questions, like that. So be really specific, and that makes you less likely to procrastinate. And what a lot of people are saying to me is like they're really procrastinating, and it gets to maybe 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock and they've done nothing, which is really common for all of us at the moment. So don't be worrying. But I think the really important thing is to try to not be too perfectionistic about it then. People say the day's gone then. Well, yes and no. So could you try to do a half an hour of work? Just a half an hour. Yes, I've got nothing done yet, but can I do a half an hour? But also, well, could I make a meal then? If I just feel like there's no work happening today, could I do something productive, like make a meal, even change the bed sheets, whatever. And build in breaks, really important. Again, your brain, like all of us, is in a weird place, and we need to know, when am I having a break? Because that can help with the concentration and motivation, knowing, okay, I just have to do this for half an hour, I just have to do this for 40 minutes, and then I'll take a break. So that can really help with the productivity. Okay, I'm speaking fast, I know that.
No, it's good.
Okay, interruptions. This is a big one. I think for a lot of people at the moment, it doesn't matter if you're in school, if you're working, if you're in college, whatever you're doing. We're all kind of living cheek by jowl with people that we're maybe not so used to being in close quarters with. If you are working or studying, and you don't want to be disturbed, set up like either a traffic light system or whatever system you want at home, and stick the relevant color on your door. Like right now, I'm doing this webinar, so I've just told like no one to disturb me for another hour, and that's okay. I think that can be helpful actually, because then people know whether they can kind of disturb you or not. So that's actually can be helpful for everyone. Okay, so, and this is, I suppose, what if I had only one takeaway message today, would probably be this. Like we're being told, like, learn a new skill, learn a language, write a book, write a blog, and like it's really, I think, anxiety provoking for a lot of people. Our friends, our family, the media is saying, like, be productive, use this time well, like you'll never get this time again. But actually that is so much pressure on people. And again, a lot of people are struggling just to kind of do the basics. So really try to focus on what's right for me. Some people are working from home and they feel like, God, like working from home just suits me down to the ground. I'm getting so much done. It's brilliant. Other people aren't in the same situation. So really think about what works for you. If it's getting a good bit of work done, great. If it's just literally getting up and getting dressed and getting your shower, do that. And focus on that. Focus on those basic, simple things that you can do that are going to kind of keep you going and keep you ticking over. And that's absolutely fine. And I really think we need to evaluate where we're all at with that. And even if you're not sure yourself, maybe talk to a friend or a family member and kind of tell them where you're at. Tell them, like, I don't feel like I'm getting anything done. I'm feeling a bit stressed about everything. And then maybe look at, okay, well, what's one thing, like I was saying, set a goal for the day. So what's one thing I'll aim for during the day? And then kind of work from there. So hopefully that's okay for everyone. So throughout the session, I'm just doing a little bit of, I'm doing a little bit on like little things that you can do at home if you are getting a bit tense. So this is just a very quick video, again, it's literally a minute. So if you're sitting or lying down, take a slow, deep breath through your nose and exhale. And this is a lovely one. Again, I'll talk about proprioception in a minute. Just squeeze those hands. And if they said it there, like squeeze it like you're making lemonade. I've never done that, but and then release it and exhale. And that's, again, this is very calming. And then the next one is just squeeze those shoulders up. Oh, I needed that actually. And again, just do that a couple of times. And then these are just a couple of other examples. So pretend you're trying to move a fly off your nose. So kind of squeeze up your face and then relax it. Yeah, it's a good one. So again, like guys, that's literally a minute. You know, I think that's a really simple, easy way to think about what are some of the things I can do throughout the day. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to start meditating for 2 hours a day or anything. You can just do some of these little things. And again, there's lots of different ones. Find something that works well for you and kind of stick with that. Okay, so let's get on to kind of anxiety and sensory regulation. Again, this is something that I've been talking to loads of people about over the last couple of weeks. A lot of people are worrying a lot at the moment. Again, I just think that's completely normal. We're in such an unusual, unique situation. It's completely normal to be worried. But if the worry is kind of taken over and you just feel really paralyzed and you're not able to do anything, that's when it's time to kind of take action. So number one is, if you normally have professional supports that you're working with, check if they're still available. Lots of people are doing what we call telehealth, like I'm doing right now. I'm meeting with my all my clients by video, and that's totally fine. So if those people are available to you or your normal supports, use them. If they're not, maybe now's the time. Maybe you've been thinking about using an online support. Maybe think about that at the moment. And then the other big one that a lot of people have been talking about is trying to put some boundaries on the social media. Again, and I think people are maybe getting a bit better about this. I think even 2 weeks ago, people were really like constantly checking the news. I think people have calmed down maybe a little bit about that. But again, like it's like getting like it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts. Like you're getting like it's constantly getting bad news, and that can really affect our mood. And again, it's things that you can't really do anything about, so it's really guaranteed to generate anxiety. So try to maybe put a bit of a boundary on the social media. So either maybe you can check it in the morning and the evening, or once or twice throughout the day, but not just constantly kind of having the phone there and checking it. Okay. Write down the worries in a journal, a diary, or just even a scrap of paper, and acknowledge them. I think that's the big thing with any kind of anxiety, like to acknowledge that you're actually worried about something, and try to see what you can control. So like a lot of people are saying to me, like, I feel like trapped in the house, and try to reframe that a little bit around, well, yes, I can't go out as much as I normally would, but I'm contributing to flattening the curve. So again, a lot of people have told me that they find that helpful, to try to see like what they're doing is helpful to society. And that we're all playing our part. So again, write down the worries. And again, if you look back on the webinar from last week with Michael and Alison, there was a lot of good tips as well about the mental health and managing anxiety. I'm going to focus more on the sensory side of it. So sensory activities are key to managing worry. That's something I talk to people every day about. And they can help bring us from a dysregulated state. So when we want to be here, but we're kind of here or even here. So very anxious and agitated, or down here, maybe kind of too low and kind of fatigued. Sensory activities can help bring us back to that kind of middle point where we want to be. And they can be calming and soothing and even energizing, like I was saying. So again, I know this is quite a dense slide, but again, I just did this purposely so people can just quickly glance back at the information if they need to. So these are just some suggestions. Like there is, you can visit a virtual museum or even a zoo. Well, not a virtual zoo, a real zoo. And just again, see some of the colors, some of either your favorite album or animal or your favorite artist. And again, that's something that you could spend an hour on and even do with a friend or a family member. Like if you have a friend in the UK or whatever, and you could both do the same thing and then talk about what you saw, that kind of thing. So again, like there's things we can do. Listen to some relaxing music and bring the old heart rate down. We all need that at the moment. Have a bath or shower if you're able to. Again, extremely calming. Now, not everyone likes a bath or a shower, I know, but if you do, get in there and get that calming effect from the water, okay? And this is a great one. I know people are always slagging OTs for, we're always going on about baking, but really there's a lot to it. The smell of the cooking dough and the baked goods has been shown to boost people's mood, okay? And you'll find something tasty to eat at the end, which is great. But also that if you're making bread and you're kneading, that's proprioceptive work, heavy work. It's very calming. Or even stirring, okay, as well. It's just kind of repetitive. It's very calming. Another example is even just like literally light a scented candle, and you can watch the flame for a minute of mindfulness, and that's a really good one to do, because again, like I was saying, sometimes people just breathing in and out is a bit abstract for people, so actually if you watch something for a minute, that can be a good way. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about proprioception. If you've ever been to an OT, you'll know that proprioception is our favorite sense. It's one of our 7, and it just really means our awareness of the position and movement of our body and how our muscles work. So it's really just what is the information coming from your muscles and your body. And again, a lot of people find proprioception difficult to understand, but really all it means is that when I use my body or my muscles, it sends information to my brain that we know where our muscles are and we know where our body is. Now, that sounds kind of simplistic, but basically that calms your brain down, because it's like, right, I know where everyone is. I know where the body is. It's really calming. So any heavy muscle work is calming. So things like swimming, running, weights, yoga, Pilates, most of which you can do anyway. Swimming is a bit limited at the moment, but most of the rest of it you could do at home or in the park, that kind of thing. And again, anything like that, or whatever you like, that's kind of, if it's dancing or whatever. And again, kind of related to this is deep breathing. So again, a lot of people know, oh, well, I should take a few deep breaths, but they don't know why it's calming. Basically, it engages loads of muscles around your ribs, around your stomach, your diaphragm, and then the breathing out through the pursed lips engages all these muscles around the bottom of your face. So you're basically clenching loads of things and then releasing it, and that's why it's calming. So anything you can do like that is going to be calming. So again, like the woman with the lemons, you clench your fist and then release it. Very calming. So the deep breaths, any physical activity, will be calming and even energizing as well. So anything like that. And again, if you're not sure, look it up online. You'll find hundreds of suggestions. And again, ask a friend or family member to do it with you if you're not sure or you're a bit nervous. Okay. So on that note, let's do a quick movement break. Again, if you've ever been to an OT, you'll have heard the term movement break more than you care to. So again, just for even 10 or 20 seconds here, just wiggle your toes or rock your feet up and down. Oh, lift those shoulders. And roll them. And again, if you're just at home or wherever, walk to the loo, go around the block, walk to the end of the road and back. So again, it's just to get that sense of movement, and again, that's sending those signals to your brain then that you're safe and you're calm. Okay, so organization, and I'm just a very quick note on this. So really the basic things are consider different zones if possible. So again, if you're working, maybe you're working in one room and then try and rest or eat in another. So just try not to be in the same room all day. And set up your workspace. If you are studying or working, set up a little desk. Doesn't have to be a huge area or anything, but just somewhere where there's not too many disruptions. Limit the distractions in the environment. Obviously, that's a given. Again, with me right here at home, my desk is facing the wall, so there is so limited distractions. And again, try to just move around throughout the day. And again, part of that is, like, if you think about it, when you in our normal world, we're all moving around throughout the day. You might be going to an appointment, or you might be getting the bus, or we're not doing any of that at the moment, so it's so unnatural. So again, just try to move around throughout the day. Cooking as well is a great one, and coming back to baking or cooking, but again, it gives you a great sense of time. So if you go, okay, well, I'm going to have my dinner at 6, then you might go, oh well, gosh, like I need to start cooking at 4. So you know, it can just give you a great sense of time throughout the day. Use your noise excluding headphones if needed. I have mine here by the desk, okay, which we give out to students in DCU, because again, it's not perfectly quiet here. One of our neighbours is using this time to do a lot of DIY. So there's a lot of drilling noise, so I have the headphones going. And again, use your fidgets and your sensory tools. Have them. I have mine right by my desk here. There you go, Adam. So again, I've loads of stuff here by the desk, which I did bring from the office in DCU. So again, it's just to try to set up the space so that it's kind of safe for you. It feels healthy, supportive, and again, especially if you are working or studying and you're spending a good bit of time at the desk, do that. And again, then like I said, like for example, if you are, let's say you're working at your desk in your bedroom, then again, try to, you know, when you have your break at lunchtime, go to the kitchen, stay in the kitchen for half an hour or go for a walk, so that you're not just in that bedroom all day, because that's where you need to sleep as well. So that we don't want that knock-on effect on your sleep, okay? Okay. Oh, and this is, I just wanted to quickly mention the JAM card, which many of you will be familiar with, but this is something that was recently launched in DCU. And again, I just think it's great. Some people don't use it, that's fine, and some people find it brilliant. So the one on the left here is your little, it's like a little credit card sized little card if you don't know it, and you can just show it to someone. You can just show it to someone in a shop or on the bus if you just need an extra minute just to get together what you're doing. And this one on the right here is on the app. So you can just literally download the JAM card app, and then you can just show the screen to someone if you need to. And it's just, please be patient, I have autism. So it's very simple. Okay, so just a couple of words on minding yourself and self-care. And I think, again, I suppose maybe this isn't the time for one of my rants about self-care, but I suppose how OTs would look at it is this is something we should be doing all the time. This is not something that should be left for a pandemic, but this is something that we need to look at all the time. We should be doing all the time to keep ourselves healthy and stable. It's not about, like, I suppose, limiting stressors. It's about like making your life better. It's not just like, I don't want to get stressed. It's like, well, how could I kind of enhance my life and feel better? So again, it can be difficult at the moment. So how do you take care of yourself normally? What kind of bits do you focus on? Maybe you focus on social or health or physical. And so maybe just when you're finished, whenever you're finished watching this, take a couple of minutes to just think about, what would I like to be doing at the moment, I suppose, in the context of what's possible. For example, if you're a person who's into traveling, maybe you can't travel at the moment, but maybe you could plan a trip. So again, feeding that kind of that hobby or that interest that you have, but that you can't quite meet it at the moment, but you could meet it down the line. So again, looking at adapting the things that you're into. So I suppose, again, sometimes people aren't sure what self-care means and minding yourself means, and I suppose it does mean different things to different people. But I'm just going to give some examples here just so people kind of know where we're at with this. So again, minding yourself and self-care is about lots of different things. So again, just some examples here. So physical, obviously we've touched on it, but staying active, walking, stretching, running, yoga, even sleep is part of physical. So again, really prioritizing that, because if you're not sleeping well, you're going to be more anxious and more on edge. So it's really important to prioritize sleep. So social, obviously fairly self-explanatory. Make time to talk to your friends, be it on Zoom, online, that's fine. And asking for help as well if you need it. Creative, so again, without going to OTT, looking at an old or a new hobby, crafts, DIY, art, modeling, whatever you're into. Emotional and personal, so managing stress, like we've just touched on, practicing compassion, and again, I think that's a great free thing that we can all do at the moment. And volunteering, even people are volunteering, like to Skype with people at the moment, who might be alone, and random acts of kindness. So again, feel free to to leave out seeds for the birds or whatever it is, to just to make you feel like you're kind of involved. Okay. And then contemplative, really important at the moment, probably one of the most important ones, again, where people are anxious, they're not able to do the things they normally do. So really doing some of these activities can really just bring that anxiety down. So it could be jigsaws, it could be mindful coloring, mindfulness, like we've touched on, journaling, observing nature, so watching the birds, time alone as well, really important, deep breathing, like we've talked about, and progressive muscular relaxation, which we've just touched on, which again is where you clench up and then you release everything. So again, these are just examples, obviously, but again, it can be helpful just to get the ball rolling. So I mentioned staying active, and I think that's really important. And again, I think you should get the whole household involved. And again, I know that Michael mentioned last week, just finding a bit of humor at the moment is really important for self-care. And things are a little bit dark at the moment, and if we can I know I'm a fan of this one. If we can find a little humor at the moment, then that's great. And it's not, yeah, okay. So he's trying to. Okay, so look, you could look that one up yourselves, but I just, again, it's just a reminder just to stay active, but also to find the humor in the little things at the moment. I mean, of course, doing yoga at home is something you can do. And what self-care isn't, I think, is really important, because again, I think sometimes people can beat us over the head a little bit with the self-care. Well, why aren't you taking care of yourself? And like, it isn't something to be stressed about, like, oh well, now you should be doing this as well. It's just trying to identify what you need, like I said as well. It could be sensory, could be staying in touch with people, and doing what's right for you, rather than trying to do another thing that's going to stress you out. And it's, again, it's not, like I was saying, it's not an emergency response, but unfortunately that's sort of the situation we're in at the moment. But again, we do want to just try to prevent things getting out of hand, and that's why we're talking about the stuff we're talking about today. And it's not selfish at all. If we are kind of doing well ourselves and taking care of ourselves, then we can kind of do things for other people, and that's really important at the moment. Again, many of you have seen this kind of life mask, lifesaver kind of analogy before. Kind of take care of yourself first in the first instance, and then you can help others. And I think that's really important at the moment, because it's a frightening time for people at the moment, and we need to make sure that we're okay so that we can help other people. Okay. So again, this is just another little I do like these little gifts, because again, I find the breathing things will say, well, breathe in for 4 or breathe in for 6, and sometimes you don't know, is it 6 seconds or is it like, how long is that? So again, these gifts are great to just breathe slowly in and out, and again, do it as often during the day as is helpful. So breathe in and breathe out. And like I said, breathing out with the pursed lips like that is proprioceptive work again, so it's really calming. Okay. So again, that's just something, again, find something that suits you. If it's the muscular relaxation, do that. If it's the breathing, do that. Whatever kind of works for you, and do it throughout the day. Okay, that's it.
Wow, that was absolutely fantastic. I know, certainly as somebody who, some of the sort of OT stuff you covered today are things that I find very difficult. I learned an enormous amount from it, so I feel like I've kind of got a free OT session out of it, which is great. And not to mention a great YouTube link, Cats Interrupting Yoga. I think that's a must visit. But a lot there,
Definitely.
and covering a lot of the sort of queries that our community
Okay.
are sending to us at the moment. And I think people will find it really helpful, particularly even the little exercises that people can try at home.
Yeah.
I thought just one thing that you said that was really interesting, just was the whole piece, I suppose, around kind of being kind to yourself at the moment, in terms of one person can maybe manage an 8-hour project at the moment. For another person, getting up and having a shower and making a meal is a good day. And I think that's important, because one of the things we're also trying to get out there in our partnership with SuperValu as well, that, you know, we're always asking people to be understanding and accepting, but we actually need people to be even more understanding and accepting over the next little while, people really struggling. And, for family members watching this, just to realize that we have to be careful about the demands we make of people, and maybe understand that some things are just going to be too much at this time as well. I just had a couple of questions of my own, and then we have some questions from the community, if that's okay, Susan.
Lovely.
So one of the things that I was just really interested in was, obviously you're supporting college students at the moment, and I'm no doubt your colleagues in other disability services around the country are as well. Obviously a lot of anxiety. So is there any specific tips you'd give to college students at the moment, maybe dealing with the uncertainty around end of year assignments, end of year tests? What can people do to kind of manage that anxiety?
Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. So yeah, common problem at the moment, because all the universities are very quickly trying to move
Yeah.
to online exams and all that. So the main thing is to keep an eye on the emails, first of all. So just do check, because sometimes people will say, well, I didn't see anything, but actually the information was maybe there. Or if you guys use, like in DC, we use Loop or like Blackboard or Moodle or whatever it is, check that regularly. But also check in with the services. So if you haven't heard from your lecturer, it's okay to go ahead and email them and just say, look, I'm just checking in. I know we're supposed to have XY exam. Can you, like, when will we know about the assignments? Like, it's okay. You mightn't know all the information at the moment, but even to know when you'll know is good. And they should be letting you know that anyway. Like in DCU, it's like, we'll know everything by the 7th.
Okay.
So that's today. So hopefully people should know by today. But again, so most places will have that, like a deadline for when like everything is kind of being published. But also stay in touch with your colleague, or like your colleagues, your friends from your class as well, because they're going to be in the same boat. So a problem kind of shared is a problem halved, I think, as well. And do just keep up to date with your work. Like, you might know they might be changing deadlines, they might be changing this, that, but you've got plenty of work to be doing, I'm sure. So just keep working with that as far as you can. And then again, like, contact your lecturer if you need to know more information.
That's really helpful. The next one I'm kind of asking you to tell the future, so I hope that's okay.
Oh, it's fine.
So what it's all about, I suppose, is, obviously what AsIAM's been focusing a lot about, and what we've talked about today, is we're really worried about supporting people with particular difficulties at this time. But I think one of the things that I'm finding interesting is that I'm actually seeing a lot of benefits from this time as well. Certainly I'm finding it much easier to manage on a day-to-day basis, where you're not moving from one sensory environment to another constantly, where you're able to work remotely, and it's a lot easier to turn people on and turn people off and all of that sort of stuff. Do you think there's opportunities from COVID-19 from an OT perspective, in terms of maybe looking at how we work moving forward, that could potentially benefit the autism community?
I really think there is, and that's a great point. I think even taking the college point of view, and again, I mean, I can't speak for DCU like management, if you like, but where people before it might have been said in any university, and we're seeing this all over the world, where you can't go online, you can't attend a lecture online, and you must be there in person. And again, we're kind of seeing, is that really true?
Yeah.
But also, like you're saying, like, what about the opportunities for people to work from home, or to work from home even a couple of days a week, and maybe be in an office 2 days a week or something. We're really seeing, I think what a lot of people are saying is, what are they saying? You can really see now that instead of a meeting, it could have been done by email, so something where you had maybe a 2-hour meeting now is kind of agreed quickly by email. So again, I think we are actually seeing that people are adapting quickly to this. It's working. And as you say, while some people are maybe struggling with this, other people are really flourishing with it. And again, I think maybe a silver lining of this situation is that we are seeing that these systems can work. And also that I think personally, the longer this goes on, the more the more likely it is to be a permanent change.
Absolutely. I've one final question just before we move into some questions from our community. And I guess it's just something that's come up a few times now. And I think because this is a seminar with yourself targeting adults in particular, I think it's maybe something that is just worth highlighting, and maybe you have a pearl of wisdom or two on. And I suppose it's just that we're focusing a lot, I suppose, on kind of autistic people at this time, maybe as service users, people like ourselves who are kind of relying on essential services, healthcare services, all of that. But I suppose at the same time, when we're talking about the adult population, there's many autistic people maybe who are working in our supermarkets at the moment, who are maybe doctors or nurses in our hospitals even, you know, who are very much actually on the front line during this crisis. And I can only imagine that that's going to be particularly challenging. So for people who are maybe in incredibly stressful situations at the moment, and are doing their jobs, would you have any particular coping mechanisms or recommendations that you would make?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think just for everyone out there listening to this, that is such a good point. Like, we have hundreds of nurses, doctors, OTs, and even researchers that are on the front line at the moment who are all autistic, and who are all, again, and I hope that that really penetrates with people, to flip the narrative a little bit, like you were saying, like that these people aren't receivers of services, or maybe they are, but they're also frontline staff themselves. Um, I suppose, gosh, I'm not sure if I have a pearl of wisdom for
No.
that or not, but I think it's kind of some of the stuff we said, like that self-care has to be key. Like, those people can't do their job on the front line if they're not taking care of themselves. Now, they may not be able to do anything about the hours, they may be working 12-hour shifts or even 24-hour shifts, but to be able to come home, to rest, to have some of the mix of activities we talked about, like social, so being in touch with people. When they're on that 12 or 24-hour shift, they're not going to be able to be checking in with people as much, of course, and even then doing some sensory activities, especially some of that calming stuff, like I mentioned. I mean, I've been in that situation before where it's a crisis or whatever, and the thing is, you can be tired but wired. So again, if people are finding themselves in that situation, or especially if they've had a very upsetting day, you know, on the front line, to think about some of the things I touched on. So some of that sensory stuff that is very calming. So having the bath, or some of the deep breathing, or the progressive muscular relaxation, that's really going to enable them to just kind of take it down a level and to calm down. And I suppose that they should be doing that, that they're worth spending that time, and that it's important for us that they're all well as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just a few questions from the community, and some of them you've touched on already, and maybe they're just slight builds or slight further specific pieces. One is just in relation to special interests. So we had a few people on to us who are maybe really struggling with a particular special interest, a particular activity that they like to do every day, that they're not able to do at present. What would be your advice to a person in terms of dealing with that?
Yeah, so that's a really tough one for some of our folks out there at the moment, especially if your special interest is based around getting out and about, or if you need to go to the library to be looking up stuff, that kind of thing. Or some people, for example, it might be looking at the planes coming in at the airport, things like that, and you can't do it at the moment. So again, I go back to what I was saying about planning a little bit. So if the thing that you're really interested in, for whatever reason, you kind of can't get out and about at the moment, can you work on it at home? Can you look stuff up? Can you research it? Can you read stuff? Listen to podcasts about it, or make your own content? Could you make a video telling people about it, you know, and sort of flip it like that? Could you write something about it, and publish that? I mean a blog, I don't mean a book. But you know, like,
Yes.
so really think about, this is an opportunity to be creative. It might be stressful that you can't engage with it in the normal way, but what about thinking about, what is another way I could look at it?
Fantastic. And this one slightly links, but I think it's different, and it's very OT related, I think, in terms of maybe a person who has a particular activity they do to self-regulate. And I don't have an example here, but I'm going to make it up and say it might be something like horse riding or swimming. And they're not able to do that activity at the moment. How, I suppose, can the person still, I suppose, access that way of regulation, but maybe in a different way?
Yeah, well, that is a great question. And again, it is something that I'm seeing with people at the moment. And again, a good example, like, for example, if it was horse riding or swimming, like we said, it's very difficult to do that at the moment, if not impossible. So again, I think to try to be creative. For example, if it was something like swimming or horse riding, as an example, try to think about what the sense is. So again, with both of those, well, maybe both proprioceptive, so like we talked about, getting information through the muscles, and maybe with horse riding it's vestibular as well. So you're up quite high, you're kind of you're moving up and down as well, so there's a lot of vestibular information. So is there anything that you could do kind of at home or even sort of in the garden, in the park, that would mimic that kind of sensory input? So again, like try to pick something that's proprioceptive. So if you're into swimming, maybe look at some Pilates or yoga where there's all this slow kind of even movements, so kind of mimic that a little bit. Or even, like I said, jump in the bath. Now you won't be able to do that many lengths, but you can at least get the calming effect of the water. And so again, try to be a little bit creative. Think about what that thing is, that self-regulatory behavior, or even if it's stimming, think about what it is and try to take the essential thing from it. So what kind of movement or what kind of activity is it, and try to see, could you replicate that? And again, if you're not sure yourself, talk to someone. Like if you're saying to someone, well, this is what I think it is there anything that you can think of that I could do that would be similar?
That makes a lot of sense. And just a couple more questions from our community. One is just in relation to, and I think actually these next two are very linked as well. Really, you're at home all day, you're in a sensory environment, and maybe your home is usually a relaxing place, but maybe now there's 5 or 6 people working from home, socializing from home, all the rest of that. How can you regulate your response to the sensory environment at home when there's lots of people, lots of noise, maybe a very confined space?
Yeah, and a great point. And again, I think a lot of people out there will relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, kind of similar. I think looking at, well, first of all, what are the typical things that I do to kind of help me regulate? Again, whether it's exercise, whether it's something contemplative, whether it's looking at stuff online, and seeing how you can adapt that a little bit. If there's a lot of noise, again, if there's a lot of noise in the house, you might use the noise excluding headphones or earphones if you want to. But again, think about, well, let's say if I'm very into reading, but it's just too noisy at home. Could I go down to the park maybe and read? Or it's just a quiet space, could I go into the garden? Or could I, so being a little bit creative about, you know okay, maybe you're not confined to your room, but maybe I could go to another room in the house. Or maybe I could wait till, I like to do X or Y, but maybe I'll do that in the morning when people are more quiet, or like that. So being a little bit, you mightn't be able to do things in exactly the same way, but you might be able to do it at a different time or in a slightly different way.
I think it's really interesting because so often, we spend so much time talking about environments outside of the home.
Mm,
I think a lot of the time, none of us actually think about our own home environment. And
yeah.
one of the things we're trying to encourage families to do at the moment is even download our sensory checklist and look at your home,
Yeah.
because there could be triggers there that you've never thought about before that are going to be a lot more challenging because you're there a lot more at the moment.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you're living in a mixed kind of neurodiverse household, which most of us are,
Yes.
again, what isn't annoying maybe for one person is annoying for another,
Yes.
or isn't, kind of dysregulating for another person. So I think actually doing a sensory audit around the house is a good idea, and actually could be kind of a bit of fun, or at
Yeah.
least informative about each other. And again, I think maybe being quite clear at the moment with the people you're living with about what's important to you, especially what's like the most important thing. So like you mightn't, like we were saying, you mightn't be able to arrange exactly everything to suit every person.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing that you're like, I cannot deal with this, and this is really going to impact on me if this is happening, or if this is happening in such a way, to try to be clear about that.
Yeah.
And and for everyone, and that's helpful for everyone as well.
Completely. I guess one of the questions that came in was from a family member, and they were interested. Like, of course, I think it's interesting because a lot of what you've said, I think, applies. But they were very interested that if you have a loved one who maybe sometimes becomes overwhelmed, experiences meltdowns, if you're beginning to see the signs that a person may be kind of, I suppose, on the cusp of having that experience, what are the things you can do to calm the person down?
Okay, well, that is a good question. And I think, again, well, it's kind of the chicken and the egg, but I think maybe having a conversation with that person ahead of time,
Mm,
what would be helpful? If you feel like, if you are becoming like distressed, or you are becoming upset, what would be helpful? Do you want me to talk to you? Do you want me to leave you alone? Would you like me to put out certain tools or tech that you can engage with yourself? So almost having that plan ahead of time, what, like, agree together what would be helpful. Um, for example, I'm learning sign language myself over the last couple of years, and which is almost impossible if you're dyspraxic. Let's just put that out there first of all. But there was actually someone in my class who was on the spectrum as well. So we had a great like little neurodiverse gang in the sign language class. And she was learning it because when she would say have a bit of a meltdown, she wouldn't be able to speak, but she could sign. So she taught her friends some sign language so that she could sign with them when she was in that state. She couldn't be verbal, but she could sign. Okay. So I'm not saying everyone needs to run out and learn sign language, but again, be a little bit creative. Like, let's think ahead of time what would be helpful. And again, if you're not sure, if you haven't had that chance to have that conversation, or you're not sure for whatever reason, again, I would go with the basics, the proprioceptive things. So deep pressure, if the person like is open to that, can tolerate that. So again, could be, you know, some pressing or pushing, obviously gently, or you know, like helping them with some deep breathing if they're kind of open to that. Or again, just, you know, sitting close by quietly and enabling the person to kind of communicate with you when they're ready. Okay. The other thing that some people do, and again, this is not specific to this situation, but is they'll have cards, you know, so like a green card, a red card, things like that, that could symbolize certain things, and that would be helpful.
That's fantastic. And our very last question today relates to somebody attending a residential service or a day service and finding it's not possible to attend at the moment. It's been closed. And finding it very hard to deal with the lack of certainty around when it will reopen. Well, what would be your advice or tips for the family in that situation?
That's really tough for people. And again, a lot of people in a similar kind of situation, where even with school, things like that. Okay, so again, I think maybe thinking about things in a visual way or a first then kind of way. So maybe like at the moment it's closed, as soon as it's open, you'll be able to go, you know, those kind of things. So not like we don't know all the answers, but we know when certain things happen, then it will be possible. So, you know, when the lockdown maybe is finished, then it will be possible, or, you know, so not knowing exactly. And again, what I would try to look at is, well, what are some of the things that the person is getting out of that center, and how you can reproduce some of them at home as well. Because again, they're missing that as well. Like, they're missing what inputs they're getting at the center. But also, if the person's really struggling, again, could they be in touch with some of the people they'd normally meet there as well? And even to be able to have some kind of, not calendar, but like I was saying, like a kind of a now and then kind of system with various things.
Absolutely. And just for whoever submitted that question, one of the things we've been working on is kind of a bank of social stories for all of these different situations. So we'd one at the weekend for somebody maybe in a residential service who their family isn't able to visit them at the moment because of this. We will take this one up and do one now specifically on that one as well. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah, and I think the social stories are really helpful at the moment. And AsIAM's one on what happens when you go to get tested, I thought was brilliant, and actually again relevant for loads of people, not just those on the spectrum. So again, I think the social stories can be particularly helpful at the moment.
Susan, I want to thank you so much for giving your time today, when I know
you're so welcome.
And it's great to have a neurodiverse colleague as well, given this information. I think it's when it comes from that kind of direct experience as much as the professional expertise, I think that really comes through. So we hope everyone found today helpful and useful. You can comment down below if you have any further questions or queries, and we will be following this up with our resources over the next few days. Tune in next week where we'll be announcing our topic and taking your questions in the next few days. Huge thank you to SuperValu for supporting this initiative, and also for all it's doing at the moment to try and continue to support the autism community at this difficult time. So thank you very much, and we look forward to staying in touch in the coming days.